German Chancellor Angela Merkel visited a devastated town on Sunday. That's as the death toll across Western Europe from flooding approaches 200. David Doyle has this report.
Angela Merkel has described flooding that has devastated parts of Europe as terrifying after seeing for herself the destruction in one town. Germany's Chancellor visited Schuld on Sunday, where roads have been washed away, the sanitation system is submerged, and phone and internet networks are either down or unusable. Merkel said there was no word in the German language to describe the scale of the devastation, as she promised swift financial aid. She also said governments would have to get better and faster in their efforts to tackle the impact of climate change. The European floods, which began on Wednesday, have mainly hit the German states of Rhineland-Palatinate and North Rhine-Westphalia, as well as parts of Belgium. Entire communities have been cut off, without power or communications. As efforts continued on Sunday to track down missing people, flash floods hit a district of Bavaria, turning roads into rivers, sweeping away vehicles, and killing at least one person. Hundreds of rescue workers are looking for survivors in the area, which borders Austria.
The cleanup and rescue operations continue following Germany's worst natural disaster in half a century. In one of the hardest hit towns, some people lost everything but their lives. NTD's Natalia Nating brings us their stories.
Residents and business owners in a town badly hit by the record flooding in Germany pick up the pieces after their livelihoods were swept away or caked in sludge. This bookseller of 33 years in Bad Neuenahr, Ahrweiler, on the weekend tried to save what was left of his antiquarian bookshop.
There are some books my heart doesn't bleed as much, but we have books from 1510, 1520. We have early printed books. We have books that are irreplaceable.
In this worst-hit district south of Cologne, over 110 people died. He said he barely made it when the waters came.
I would have drowned had I waited 1 minute longer. I have seen bodies flushed down here, 2 adults and 1 child. They were not able to save themselves anymore.
This wine merchant also lost everything.
It has all been destroyed. One does not recognize the scenery anymore. It's a catastrophe for everyone.
He said he can only hope to salvage some documents from his shop. During a news conference on Sunday, the mayor of the nearby village of Schuld came close to tears.
These floods have scarred the people in Schuld. Scars that will never be forgotten and cannot be overcome. Because our life has changed from one day to the other.
In the region, over 3,000 people are still missing. Police say some bodies have been washed miles away from their homes. Natalia Nating, NTD News.
Over 100,000 people across France on the weekend protested against the government's latest anti-COVID-19 measures. People came out in opposition to mandatory vaccinations for health workers and COVID passports. NTD's Eddie Aiken has more on this.
More than 100,000 people marched across France on Saturday. They protested against President Macron's plans to force vaccination of health workers and to require a COVID-19-free certificate to enter restaurants. Demonstrators said the president's measures infringe on their freedom of choice.
I have never taken to the streets, but with freedom being truly the highest value of the French people, it really seems to be the honour of France to be here.
Protesters walked by the Louvre Museum, chanting "Macron, clear off" and "freedom." Some signs read "No to the health passport."
Peut-être, je ne dis pas le contraire, j'en sais rien en fait.
Maybe the vaccine is good, maybe not, I don't know. In fact, I've read some good things, some bad things. But it's the way we're told. It's like this or nothing. In France, we're a country of human rights. I'm sorry, that's the way France is.
Macron's government argues the measures are needed to fight a surge in COVID-19 infections and protect hospitals. On the weekend, the government said France would reinforce restrictions on unvaccinated travellers from a series of countries. The requirement for COVID passes for all restaurants, cinemas and other venues is being introduced in stages, starting on Wednesday. Eddie Aitken, NTD News.
A documentary from Hong Kong was a surprise addition to this year's lineup at the Cannes Film Festival. It's shining a spotlight on Hong Kong's 2019 pro-democracy movement. Lucy Fielder has this report.
A documentary by Hong Kong filmmaker Kiki Chow was a surprise addition to this year's lineup at the Cannes Film Festival. These stills are from Revolution of Our Times, which chronicles the 2019 pro-democracy movement and shines a light on protesters' stories and their clashes with police. China introduced a sweeping national security law a year ago to crack down on what it deems subversion, secessionism, terrorism and collusion with foreign forces. Chow turned activist in 2019 and was inspired to get filming when he saw city workers like cleaners engage in small acts of resistance. He hopes the movie will help the movement live on. Reuters caught up with him in Hong Kong in June.
I'm a Hong Konger. I'm also a film director. What I have is my camera. I wanted to be involved in this movement. As long as I have a talent, I have a place in this movement. My identity gives me a sense of responsibility. I hope I can show people that Hong Kongers who work in the film industry are not absent from the movement.
The Hong Kong government recently brought in guidelines allowing authorities to censor films on the basis of safeguarding national security. Cinemas, universities and art galleries have cancelled screenings or exhibitions of protest-related works. Chow said he worked freely on the documentary, doing his best not to think about the red lines.
During production, it wasn't just my own fear I had to face. The most difficult thing was that I had to deal with other people's fears, including those from news outlets, independent journalists, and online media. Many people are facing struggles of their own. After the national security law was put in place, many people refused to let me use their footage.
Cannes organisers said they kept the screening under wraps, partly because the film wasn't finished until the last minute, but early clips had piqued their interest. Festival director Thierry Frémaux said Cannes was proud to put Revolution of Our Times forward. It showed how cinema can shine a light on important moments in world news.
The fifth instalment of the Indiana Jones series is set to be released in July 2020. And it looks like Jones has a new friend joining his next adventure. NTD's Joy Duguid brings us this report.
The Spanish star of The Mask of Zorro, Antonio Banderas, will be part of the next Indiana Jones movie. The film is directed by James Mangold and executive produced by famed director Steven Spielberg. The title and plot are unknown as of now. Harrison Ford has been playing the main character since Raiders of the Lost Ark in 1984. And in June, the almost 80-year-old actor injured his shoulder while rehearsing for a fight scene in the new movie. Ford's big screen return was originally scheduled for release in 2019, but has been pushed back multiple times. Banderas has a career spanning more than 100 movies, including the action-adventure The Expendables 3, where he co-starred with Ford in 2014. In 2020, the Malaga-born star was nominated for an Academy Award as Best Actor. The Indiana Jones franchise was created by filmmaker George Lucas, and it has grossed nearly £1.5 billion at the world box office, with 4 films, amassing a global fan base. Indiana Jones 5 comes nearly 14 years after the last movie, Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Joy Duguid, NTD News.
Animal shelters in Germany are reaching full capacity as people return pandemic pets that have since developed behavioral problems. NTD's Cos Temenes has more on this.
During the pandemic, many people longed for a furry companion. But for a lot of new pet owners, the responsibility now seems too great, and some are trying to get rid of them. Animal shelters in Germany are struggling to cope with the flood of pets being returned.
These are families who had a lot of time, who were at home. There were many children whose dream to own a dog became true, and they got a dog from somewhere. They either bought them on the internet, and often these dogs were illegal imports.
Dog training schools shut down at the height of the pandemic, so the pets became a burden once they started showing behavioral issues.
There were many sick animals, and there were also dogs with behavioural problems due to the way they were raised. And then all the dog schools were closed. That means the families couldn't get any help when they needed it.
Banderas animal shelter is reaching its limits, especially when it comes to taking in difficult dogs. Chances of finding new homes for animals are slim. For those with behavioral problems, it is close to zero.
The problem is that many people want to return their dogs because the animals are incompatible and very difficult to handle, and there simply is no more room for difficult dogs.
For animal shelters, this often means they end up taking in the dogs permanently without financial support. Cost MNS, NTD News.
Two groups of ancient rock carvings in northwest Russia are vying for UNESCO World Heritage status, with some dating back 7,000 years. NTD's Eddie Aiken has the story.
Two groups of ancient rock carvings in northwest Russia could soon be awarded UNESCO World Heritage status. The carvings were discovered in 1926 and are known as petroglyphs. The petroglyphs of Lake Onega have more than 1,200 figures over an area of nearly 12 miles. 200 miles north, the petroglyphs of the White Sea have over 3,400 individual figures.
There are a lot of petroglyphs in the world. Technically, there are clusters bigger than ours quantitatively and much more ancient, up to 40,000 years old, but in terms of scenes, composition, movement, development, dynamics, it's like ancient comics. There's nothing like this anywhere on Earth.
The artworks were originally created on seacoast rocks and offshore islands 5,000 to 7,000 years ago. The White Sea has since receded over 4 miles, exposing the petroglyphs. Most of them depict the daily life of Neolithic people, hunting, fishing, and even using skis.
Belugas, reindeer, moose, swans, large birds. All these allowed ancient humans to survive. It's the Neolithic epoch, late Neolithic.
The etchings were made using jackhammers crafted from quartz. Carving the artworks was hard. It took researchers 30 minutes to etch a 10-centimeter line using the same tool. Eddie Aiken, NTD News.
That's the news for today, and thanks for tuning in. I'm Stuart Lees. Thank you for watching our daily news show on YouTube. You can also watch our other programming on channel 190 on Sky TV or on Freeview via channel box on channel 271. In the meantime though, please give this video a like and hit subscribe to our channel. Have a good day.